So, here we are again. I just woke up from a nap. I did all this research from like 4 different areas for today's lesson, and then I said, I am tired. I'm gonna take a nap first. That's what I did. Okay, so we're gonna learn about 2 different people, music history lesson, and then history lesson. So the music history lesson is Isaac Albeniz. Who's that? I'll tell you. Isaac Manuel Francisco Albeniz y Pascual was born May 29th, 1860. He's a Gemini. He was born in Catalonia, Spain. He was a prominent and significant influence on the post-Romantic era, which was a stylistic movement in Western classical music that included the likes of Beethoven, Chopin, Schubert, etc. If you haven't heard of the composer, etc., you should check him out. He was a child prodigy on piano and appeared as a pianist in Barcelona at age 4, but he was also a problem child at home. Geminis. Often running away from home or having to be rescued from his escapades at age 6 or 7. Okay, we have different conflicting reports of the things that I was reading, so I'm going to pick these out. So, at the age of either 6 or 7, his father took him to the French Conservatory to apply for admission. He passed the entrance exam. Second conflicting report, really. As the judges were praising his performance, Albeniz whirled around on the piano stool, took out a hardball, and shattered it at a nearby mirror. He was promptly refused admission. A conflicting report said he wasn't admitted because he was too young. Okay. Another one here, it says that after stowing away on a boat to South America, the vagabond played pianos in cafes until he was 12. It didn't say how old he was when he stowed away. Conflicting report is that his father was a customs agent and traveled frequently, thus bringing his son with him. Okay. When he returned home and entered the Madrid Conservatory, then the Leipzig, Germany Conservatory for a short period, and then onto the Brussels Conservatory in Belgium. When he was in his 20s, he toured America with Anton Rubinstein. Between then and the next 12 years, Albeniz composed 250 piano pieces. Returning to Madrid at age 32, he taught briefly and was credited with being the creator of the modern Spanish Nationalist School of Music. He also co-founded the Modern Spanish Piano School. He then permanently relocated to Paris. There he settled down into contentment with his wife, also a student, and 2 children who lived to adulthood. There's some conflicting reports about how many children he actually had and how many survived into adulthood, but 2 of them survived into adulthood. He then followed the music scene in France. The piano manufacturer Hérode sponsored a series of 20 concerts featuring Albeniz's music at the 1888 Barcelona Universal Exposition. Like I said, I just woke up. He was also close friends with the Spanish collective called the Generation of 98, no, not 1998, 1898, who were associated with modernism committed to aesthetic and cultural renewal. In 1909, the French government bestowed upon Albeniz its highest honor, the Legion of Honor. Isaac Albeniz died 11 days before his 49th birthday from kidney disease brought on by Bright's disease, diagnosed 9 years earlier on May 18th, 1909. Okay, so I'm going to read to you from a book. I know, typically I like to do my research from like different resources, but this book is the second book by Bill Coate about American history. It's called More Shocking Secrets and American History, 103 Surprising Amusing Tales. Here we go. Bill Coate. So I thought it'd be fun for us to periodically read from this book. So it's about American history. So the first one is not American. It's colonial. And it is called Cruel and Unusual Punishment. Should I read it like this so you can see the book? Okay. Are you ready, children? Okay, good. Citizens of the United States are protected against cruel and unusual punishment by the Constitution. Yeah, that helped us, didn't it? The need for such a shield came from the outrageous methods with which our English common law dealt with criminals. Our founding fathers didn't want to see anyone drawn and quartered or burned at the stake. Unfortunately for Giles Corey, This prohibition against cruel and unusual punishment didn't quite come soon enough to save him from a horrible death at the hands of officials in colonial America. Corey left Old England in the 17th century to settle in New England. He became a rather prosperous farmer who tried to do everything right. Giles and... Well, okay, not necessarily, because I was reading something. I know, I'm going to be doing these. I was reading something where he didn't always necessarily do everything right. In fact, one time he beat a servant to death. Anyway. And it said, okay, yes. Attending to all the demands of the Puritan society placed on them, including the obligatory... Oh, see, I just woke up. Obligatory attendance at divine services on Sunday. That's why he was so surprised when the authorities, accompanied by the preacher, came to take him to jail. He was accused of abusing 2 little girls who lived in the parsonage. So his wife was actually, what's the word I'm looking for? They thought the wife was a witch, and then they called him in for questioning. Okay. So that's actually what happened. About a month later, they involved him with what was going on with the wife. Nothing could have shocked Giles Corey any more than this accusation. He had always been respectful of the parson and his family, including his young niece who had moved in with them. So outraged was he by the charges that Giles refused to even enter a plea, and this placed him in an inevitable position. In those days before the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, English common law prevailed, and that meant that Corey was caught on the horns of the dilemma. If he refused to enter a plea, he would have to undergo the ancient punishment. In the face of the obdurate refusal, he replied to the charges. Refusal to reply to the charges. He would face execution by being pressed to death. Okay. So if he had confessed, right? I was reading about this. If he had confessed, then his estate would have gone to basically like law enforcement. They would have confiscated it. But because he didn't confess to it, because he didn't do a plea bargain or anything like that, when he died, in his will, his estate went to the next in line. So that's why he didn't do it. On Monday, September 19th, 1692, they took Corey from jail and led him to the site adjacent to the courthouse. When he refused one last time to enter a plea, he was stripped naked and made to lie between 2 boards. Heavy rocks were placed upon his chest. Every hour, more rocks were added until finally he could hardly breathe. At noon the next day, 80-year-old Giles Corey, yes, he was 80. He was 80 years old. Spoke his last words. More rocks, he whispered. More rocks. He wanted death to come quickly. When the executioner obliged him, Corey lapsed into a semi-conscious state and his tongue was pressed out of his mouth. As the sheriff forced it back in with his cane, Giles Corey mercifully departed this earth. Ironically, watching the whole dreadful spectacle was the Reverend Samuel Parris, whose daughter Betty and niece Abigail Williams had accused the old farmer of abuse by casting spells on them. They said that he was a wizard and his wife was a witch. The 2 young cousins had started the Salem witchcraft hysteria, and Giles Corey was one of its victims. Actually, so was Giles' wife. She was hung, I think it was 4 days later. The shenanigans of these 2 girls in the 1692 Salem witch hunt and the refusals of Giles Corey to dignify the town's insanity laid the foundations for building America's safeguards against cruel and unusual punishment. Actually, I have this right here. Why didn't I have that up? I don't know why. In 1712, Corey was absolved of the crime, but his wife was not. Interesting. Anyway, so today, what did you learn? You learned about Spanish composer Isaac Albeniz and Giles Corey. I'll catch you next week. Love you guys.